Good evening, good morning, greetings and salutations. We respectfully acknowledge all Native American peoples who have lived on this land since time immemorial. TCU especially acknowledges and pays respect to the Wichita and affiliated tribes upon whose historical homeland we have our university. Greetings and welcome to our virtual town hall meeting as sponsored by TCU's Race and Reconciliation Initiative, as well as TCU Athletic Diversity Council. The goal of RRI is to fulfill the Chancellor's and Board of Trustees' charge of studying racism, slavery, and the Confederacy. While the first year of research thus focuses primarily upon Black Americans, this is merely the first step of many as additional identities and histories of our TCU community must and will be explored in subsequent years. Again, by way of clarification, the RRI is an academically based, historically focused initiative designed to investigate and document TCU's history. As a courtesy, we will direct questions outside of our scope and charge to the appropriate parties for proper attention. Presently, part of our action while we research and write a preliminary report for opening sharing in April 2022, we hope you all enjoy today's virtual town hall. Today, we are accompanied by some members of our athletic community for hustling hard. Before we bring on our esteemed guests, I'd like to go over a few moments of notice. So tomorrow we have Walk With Us, TCU's Heritage Trail. Join us as we walk through campus to kind of explore the many shades of purple, exploring the Black and brown histories that are hidden in plain sight, things that we kind of take for granted and not necessarily pay attention to on our campus that make TCU what TCU is. So join us tomorrow. We'll be beginning at the Frog Fountain at 12 noon, and we have a reception here at the Harrison Lobby right at 1 p.m. So don't meet us there, beat us there.
Tonight. And what a story this is for this school of 9,000 down in Fort Worth, Texas.
You wonder if a win like this could change the climate in the future.
So that was just a few videos, a small commercial before we get started. But before, we have some exciting news. First, we want to send a congratulations to our men's basketball for making it to the big dance. They play tomorrow in San Diego. So if you are near a TV, I ask that you tune in, tweet it out, share and scream, and support our men's basketball team as they have their game tomorrow at 9 p.m. Also, congratulations to our men's tennis team for the ITA Team Indoor National Champions. Congratulations. And last, to the shooters, our air rifle team champions. They repeat as national champions again. Ladies, congratulations. And again, job well done. And for those that are interested in what else RRI is doing, we invite you all to our interactive virtual workshop that will begin on April 1st at noon, integrating race and reconciliation into the student experience. This panel will be led by some amazing scholars that will talk about how we can actually incorporate race and reconciliation into the curriculum, into the classroom, and most importantly, into our practice. And if you are interested in podcasts, we have our own podcast, Reconcile This. You can find on all streaming platforms, as well as house calls. If you want us to visit a classroom, our email is there provided below, rri@tcu.edu. And now, before we introduce some of our guests, we have a small video from one of our coaches who was unable to attend, Coach Eric Bell.
We've been able to upgrade the talent level over the course of time, and bring in kids who are interested in doing what we're trying to do as far as, compete for championships, whether it be in the conference or the nationally. But more importantly, we have good kids in our program, and I love to be around them. And the character of our players is fantastic, and they're fun to be around. And I like to joke around with them, and it's a really cool atmosphere. And I'm happy that we are where we are right now, and hopefully the success continues.
Thank you. So Coach Bell wasn't able to attend, but we wanted to make sure that he was still represented. Coach Bell has had tremendous success with our women's soccer program, and we hope they continue their success both on and off the field. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to bring to the stage our wonderful moderator. As you all could tell, I do not have long hair. My name is not Dr. G. I am Marcellus P. But this show must go on. Dr. G wishes a very great program. He is now in a national conference that he wasn't able to move, but will be watching from afar. For our moderator, coming from Atlanta, Georgia, by way of Chicago, Illinois, standing at 6'2" even with a nice afro, Mr. David Swillem. David, thank you for joining us and being our moderator today. I will now cede you the floor.
No, Marcellus, thank you. It's a pleasure to be the panel moderator for today's essential discussion. Before we jump in, I would love to give some thanks. So first, I'd like to thank the coaches and the athletes that have dedicated their leadership to this discussion. Second, I'd like to thank TCU's Race and Reconciliation Initiative for inviting us to collaborate as a part of RRI Week. And lastly, I'd like to thank all of you who came out today to join this powerful discussion. And from the Athletics Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Council, we recognize the importance of these dialogues and such as these that can truly help us build an inclusive environment within the works of diversity, equity, inclusion. Now, without further ado, I will begin introducing our head coaches for the first half of this panel. And coaches, as I introduce you, please turn on your video and your audio in the order in which I call you, which will be on my screen. First, we have head coach of cross country, Coach Lisa Morgan-Richman. Next, we have head football coach, Sonny Dykes. And lastly, we have head women's basketball coach, Coach Reagan Pebley. Thank you all for joining us, and it's great to see you. So for our first question, which will be going to Coach Lisa Morgan, as I see her first on my screen, we have, what does reconciliation mean to you? And how does reconciliation inform your professional work as a coach?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, reconciliation in itself, it means it's how we as society acknowledge our nation's past, such as slavery and all of those things that happen that we're faced with, the racism. And it's we have to make that conscious decision to evolve and make things equitable for all. So reconciliation is all of that compounded in one. And being a woman of faith and gladly working at TCU, C for Christian University, how I instill that in my team is through love. I coach in love. I recruit and I make my team a family. I recruit athletes from all different walks of life, and that brings the diversity into it. And then with that, teaching them about treating others, how to treat others, and seeing life and respecting each other from all walks of life, from their different perspectives in which they come from. And so I do that in my coaching. I do that in how we operate together as a team, through workouts, through competition, and all that we go through. And it helps to build our character and shape who we are.
Amazing. Thank you, Coach. Next, we have Coach Pebley. With regard to that response, how would you like to add to your response for the question?
Well, Lisa always does such a good job of communicating, but I would add, I think reconciliation in my professional walk, my personal walk, is about developing just a critical awareness And in order to do that, it's an awareness that you have to definitely become aware of your blind spots. You need those exposed to you. You've got to set your ego aside. There needs to be an awareness, just a reality check, really, of ourselves, of, what are the messages? What are the perceptions, the traditions, the practices that are, the privileges that are in play that you've never even really thought about before, how this affects, just diversity and inclusion and equity, and why are they in place? What is the purpose behind them? What's the intent? But then how are they actually being played out? I think also a lot about the word just grace. And in order to really reconcile that space, there's got to be an element of grace with yourself. You need grace from others. You have to ask for it at times, but it's work as well. And it's, not begrudgingly work. It's work that you're excited to go through, because, with uncomfort, we say this in athletics all the time, when you get uncomfortable, you have an opportunity to grow. And there's going to be, hard lessons in that. Absolutely. But very, very important lessons. So yeah, that critical awareness and grace are definitely two elements that I think of when it comes to reconciliation.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that wonderful input, Coach Pebley. And now we'll turn it over to Coach Dykes, who we would love to hear from and have him share his perspective as well on the question. Oh, excuse me. We are having a little bit of technical difficulties with Coach Dykes at the moment, so we will keep the show running, but he is coming.
Hey,
so
there he is.
Oh, here we go. Coach
yeah,
Dykes.
good. I've been on and I couldn't get it to work, so we finally got it done. I apologize. Again, thank you for having me, and appreciate the opportunity to be here and to share a little bit. I think I think the great thing about today's world is we have an opportunity, I think, to create a dialogue with all the different means of communication that we have now. I think the fact that we're able to do this and include people from all over, that can get together and share ideas, I think it creates great opportunity for us. I think the biggest thing that I've learned in the last several years has been, the importance of just listening. I think that to me has been probably, the biggest takeaway for me has been, look, let's dive into a subject together. And then I have to be comfortable turning it over to our student athletes and letting them talk and letting them share. To me, the greatest lesson that came out of all this turmoil really in the last several years has been perspective. I think that's been a tremendous lesson for me, and understanding how different perspective is, and how important it is, and how important it is for people to be able to share their ideas and their beliefs and why they feel that way, and how important it is for us to make them comfortable doing that, and just the lessons that can be learned from that. For our athletes, for our coaches, for our administration, everybody has learned a tremendous amount by, trying to create an atmosphere of comfort, really, where, hey, look, we can talk about tough issues and issues that plague us, and opportunities that have been provided as a result of things that have occurred. And so, to me, it's a great time to be on a team and part of a team, because I think we all can learn so much from each other. But the thing that we have tried to do, and I'm trying really hard to create this kind of culture within our program, is just, let's get comfortable with each other. let's sit down and talk and realize we all come from a different place. But I think at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. And we want to respect each other and have an opportunity to learn from each other and share with each other. And that we realize that great things can come from those opportunities to dialogue and to sit down and talk about issues that can be difficult to talk about. And just for me, just me shutting my mouth and listening and trying to encourage our players to be comfortable has been something. I think it's been a real eye opener for me personally.
Thank you so much for sharing, Coach Dykes. And I would certainly agree with all the coaches when they talked about how this is a bold work, building relationships and, expressing the empathy that it takes to have an environment where everyone has and feels like they have a sense of belonging and can work together. And so that gives us a perfect segue into our next question, which we'll start with Coach Pebley on this one, is how do you view athletics' relationship to the larger campus community?
Yeah, that's a question we get a lot. And, I'm excited to hear some of how the student athletes feel when it comes to that answer. I think what's important that in athletics, we always remember and know is that we're not the root of this family tree. We're a branch of this family tree. And we get an opportunity sometimes to have a big stage and have the cameras on us and get to represent the university and TCU in very public ways. And so we talk a lot about in athletics. I know that jersey never comes off. We're representing that TCU every day, whether we're on the field, on the court, in the classroom, or standing in line at, Starbucks or whatever NIL company you're representing. You're still representing a TCU brand, but you're also representing that last name on the back of your jersey as well. I think, something that is really important in that experience is and how it relates to RRI is just that we have more in common with this campus community than we have different. Whenever you can focus on, a common humanity and a common experience, as opposed to focusing on it in isolation, I think there's, so much beauty, so much connection, so much vulnerability, so much creativity and growth that can happen when we get to do that. And sometimes Stadium Drive feels like it's a mile long or mile wide. And that's definitely a focus that we have in our program, trying to narrow the width of Stadium Drive, where it really feels that there is not any kind of isolation of athletics to the campus, that it is truly, truly inclusive, and we are a part of a shared Horned Frog experience. We just also have a part of our experience, the opportunity to represent it on a very big public stage.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach Pebley. Again, great input, and I would totally agree. Coach Dykes, how would you like to add to that view and that perspective?
Yeah, I think the great thing about athletics that I've always believed is that, it's the great equalizer. Nobody cares where you come from. Nobody cares what your background is. It's all about being part of a team and being part of a community. And, what can you do? And I think that's what's been, for me, has always been the fun thing about athletics is, when you walk into a huddle, nobody cares what kind of car you drive, or nobody cares what high school you went to, or nobody cares where you came from. They just care about, are you a good teammate, and how can we help each other? And I think that's what makes athletics so unique, and creates, I think, so much experience and so much of a unique relationship that athletes have with each other. That's a lot of times different. I think the thing that for me being part of the campus community, I think is so important, because all of our athletes, and myself included, we all want, the student body to come support us and to be at athletic contests, football games, or volleyball games, or basketball games, whatever the case may be. But I think at the end of the day, it's like anything else. It's a relationship, and it's give and take. And I think we all have to take a role in supporting their overall campus community as well, and getting involved in events that aren't athletics related. Is when the student body has a service event, I think it's important for our athletes to get involved and to be part of that team. And part of the team is part of your floor in the dorm room, part of a special services group that's going to go out and maybe do something in the community, and just creating opportunities to work hand in hand with non-athletes, and again, get their experiences, I think is so important for us and as athletes. And I think it's, provides a tremendous opportunity to learn their story, because the thing that, again, going back to what I said earlier, the thing that I've learned is everybody's got a story, and they're all compelling, and they all matter, and they all help shape all of us. But sometimes we don't get to share those stories with each other, and we need to do a good job of making sure that we integrate ourselves into the overall campus the best that we can. Coaches, players, everybody associated with our athletic department and our program. So I think it's just important to get involved, because, like I said, there's lots of compelling stories out there, and we can all learn from each other.
Thank you so much, Coach Dykes. Yeah, sharing our stories, sharing our experiences, and being very receptive and accepting of those, so that we can all work together. And honestly, it's about, just like how you said, what can we do? Which I want to start with Coach Morgan, on this next question, which goes perfectly into that, is what role can athletics play in building the inclusive community on campus?
Sorry about that, started talking. Listening to Coach Pebley and Coach Dykes and talking about how on our side of campus, you have the athletic side and you have the academic side, which say the two sides of campus, and all the student athletes come over and they rah-rah and they cheer for us and to win. In sporting goods, everyone's cheering. We're unified. We're united. We're TCU United, like on the walkway, What I found from, student athletes sharing with me, and even walking across campus, is the inclusive part of when we're not athletes, when they're not on the field, when they're not on the court, when they're not on the track. What cheers and support are they getting on that side? How are they feeling inclusive? I think in athletics, hopefully we can create some programs for programs and events that aren't athletic based, that the student community is included, and it creates for a more inclusive and a more united front on the other side of campus. Take it away from the Schulmeyer, take it away from the stadium, take it across campus, and have events that where everyone can be included, that fits their race, creed, color. Like it's super diverse, and it's a collective front. And if we can create some programs or do some events like that on that side of campus, I think that can bring more closeness. I think it could be more we're more inviting, I would say, feeling a sense of belonging, because I'm not sure that there's always that sense of belonging when you walk across the street outside of athletics, just speaking the truth of it. And I've heard it from athletes as well. You want that sense of belonging, and we have to, as leaders and as a entity that creates such a unified and united front, if we can then bring that over, somehow, some way team up and bring that over to the other side to be a true TCU, then I think it would speak volumes. And I think many more people would feel a sense of belonging and comfortability, not just on the field, not just in athletics, but as a TCU student athlete and student overall, students embracing both.
Thank you so much, Coach Morgan, for that. That was amazing. And Coach Pebley, I'd like to turn it over to you now as well. What do you think that we can do when it comes to building an inclusive campus community coming from athletics?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with everything the other coaches have said. I think something that also, is really important is continue to do things like this and create platforms and opportunities for those stories to be told and to be shared. And then we need to believe each other. We need to believe about those stories. And, there's so much more to these student athletes than just being a student athlete or a student athlete of color. We can look at some of the intersectionality at play as well that's going on. A student athlete who's a woman of color, their story could be really different than male student athletes of color experience. And I think there's so many of those other ways that in beauty and that intersectionality that we can find, again, that common experience that doesn't isolate us as we're on this side of campus or we're the athletes and this is the academic side of campus and you're this. And all that comes to play when we connect, when we create those storytelling opportunities. You have to, be intentional about trying to, and we're working on that in our program. I know every coach looks at what are our team activities and are we really building the culture that we want through those team activities? Is there intention behind that more than just being able to share a meal together? What are we doing through that meal? And how are we connecting with each other? So, and I think that representation becomes more evident. People, when those stories are being told and shared and the platforms are there, we will see that representation, which we all know, it really, really matters. Our locker room is named after one of our former players who is one of the elite. She's royalty here at TCU, Zaina Medley Kindred. And she, it's one of the first spaces on campus named after a woman of color. And I love that it is our locker room. We honor that, and we're always going to continue to honor her through that. There are tons of women that have walked through those doors of our locker room that they know she represents so much of their story. And to be able to have that walking into a classroom across campus, a lecture hall, a dorm, I can't imagine what kind of transformational experience that would be.
I completely agree. And again, thank you so much, Coach Pebley, for sharing, your input in that wonderful experience. Now, so for our last question, before we turn it over to our student athlete leaders, this is going to go to all the coaches. We'll start with you, Coach Dykes. Briefly, or, even in the first 3 words, or briefly, whatever comes to mind first, what does it mean to be a good team player within the work of diversity, equity, inclusion?
Well, it kind of goes back to what I talked about earlier. I think that it all begins with a willingness to step outside of your comfort zone. That's where it begins, because, I think all of us, when we start talking about complicated issues and issues that we know have created a lot of uncomfortable things in the past. I mean, I think that just a willingness to talk, and a willingness to be open, and a willingness to create dialogue and not be afraid of where it goes. I think that's the biggest thing is, some of these things as people begin to share and talk, there's going to be a level of discomfort, and just learning how to deal with that, I think is so so important. And really the only way you get there on a team is you get to the point where, you trust each other, you trust the coaches, you trust the players. There's trust between all of us, where we can share and know that we're not going to be judged, and know that at the end of the day, just recognizing that we all come from a different place, but we all have the same goals and the same hopes and the same aspirations, and we all want to get to a really good point. And I think that's that to me is where it all begins, and you can't get to point B until you get to point A. And so within our program, there's got to be a level of trust, and there's got to be a level of acceptance, and there's got to be a level of forgiveness, because people are going to say things that not everybody agrees with or not everybody understands, and just understanding that, again, look, everybody in the room comes from a different place, has a different perspective, has different experiences, and as a result, we've been shaped different, and just a willingness to accept each other, I think, is where it begins.
Thank you so much, Coach Dykes. And unfortunately, because we do need to move on to our second half, we will begin to transition to our student athlete leaders on the panel. So coaches, would you, thank you so much for your input. It was amazing, and I completely agree as well. Would you please turn the videos and the audio off as we transition, and I'll introduce now our student athletes. All right, so for our student athlete leaders on the panel in the discussion today, I will introduce them in the order in which I see on my screen as well. So would you please turn on your audio and video as I call your name? Jasmine Muhammad Graham from track. Afedo Maniang from volleyball. Unfortunately, Darius Ford is probably not going to be with us. We had him on the panel, but he is probably busy attending to his duties with the team on March Madness right now. So good luck to them. But we do have Andrew Coker and Dominic D'Annunzio from football. Kayla Makwa from women's basketball, and JC Alba from the women's equestrian team. All right, so we'll be starting with Jasmine. For our first question, we have, what did you first think of Race and Reconciliation Initiative when you heard of it, and how did you hear of it?
Well, for me, I never heard of Race and Reconciliation until this panel. So, but then I researched it, and I believe that it is a great step forward to recognizing our past and moving forward and putting an end to racism. And I feel like this is an important step, especially for athletics, recognizing the issues in our society and moving forward to fix them.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. I agree. Next, we have Andrew Coker. How would you like to add to that question?
Well, honestly, I had never really heard of it either until this panel, but and I honestly didn't know what reconciliation actually meant in regards to race. But then I looked up the definition. It was something along the lines of like bringing ideas together. And I just thought that was awesome. Like that's the perfect word for what we're trying to do, right? You know, we're trying to bring ideas together and try to get people to be more understanding and listening and things like that. So, yeah, like just like Jasmine said, pretty much, you know, going off the same thing. I didn't know about it at first. Now I do. Now I'm glad I do. And that's really it. So.
Awesome. And Dominic, since we have you right there with Andrew, how would you like to chime in to how you feel about Race and Reconciliation, how you heard of it?
Right. Kind of going off what both those guys said before, great stuff, but kind of like the common theme of like getting that awareness out to everybody, like not even hearing of it or like what it actually means. Like when you hear those kind of words together, I think is super important and something that we all need to work on together. Because for someone like myself that, like Andrew was saying, didn't really know exactly what it was either. Just kind of like that awareness to spread the inclusion and sharing of ideas that we all have, because the more time you spend with everyone, no matter who it is, like you're going to find out how similar they are to you, like in some sort of background, or you'll have something in common, whether it be a sport or a passion in life. And I think that sharing that awareness is something that we all need to work on together.
Awesome. Thank you, the three of you, for sharing. And I mean, that goes perfectly into what we're going to be talking about next. And Alfredo, we'll be starting with you on this question as I see you next. So what encourages you on campus with respects to diversity, equity, inclusion, and what gives you a pause?
What encouraged me is knowing that we have certain spaces for D&I, like the Intercultural Center. And that was recently like remodeled, and I got an opportunity to go over there and like meet with some of the administrators over there. And so having that space, I feel like is very important for regular students and student athletes as well. So it was really nice to see that. And also having like groups like BSA and other groups that probably I could get away to outside of athletics, even though I don't feel like I ever have an opportunity to connect with those spaces, but it's nice to know that it's there. And what gives me a pause would be, I guess it's just like sometimes daily reminders that I'm Black. I've had like situations with professors or students on campus that give me like a daily reminder of like, oh, like I am a minority on this campus. And like sometimes ignorance is bliss, and I try to stay that way to like stay in my own lane. But like even like before spring break, I had a professor made like a microaggressive comment to me that he didn't even, I don't think he realized it because he wasn't aware. But those type of things give me a pause. And like, there is still like a long way to go of like people just being peers on this campus. And yeah, that's the type of things that like give me a pause here on campus.
Amazing. I completely agree, and thank you for sharing. Kayla, how would you like to add your input to this question?
Well, just being on campus and seeing, there's a lot of different groups that give effort to this type of thing, race and reconciliation. Like Coach Pebley just recommended me to join this. It's like a club that we're partnering with. A lot of people in the community are partnering with TCU PD and try to mending those relationships in the community. And just groups like that, like Sato said, like BSA and the Multicultural Center, goes to show like this community is about like increasing diversity and all that kind of stuff. But the things that give me pause, I would say, are similar to Sato. Like, I think it came to light to me that the student athletes, like, we kind of feel like we're in a bubble sometimes, like we only really interact with each other. And then when we get onto campus, I think for me, it was after the election last year, I saw a lot of microaggressions and just outright racism and on campus. And it's something that you wouldn't think you would see on a college campus, but then, you know, it was kind of happening in real time for us. So just things like that kind of give me pause on, you know, maybe we're not as unified as we think, but then things like this encourage that we can get on the right track.
Awesome. Thank you. And now, last but not least, JC, we would love to hear your voice and your input on this question as well. Take it away.
I think what really encourages me about DEI is that it's now part of every single conversation everywhere, no matter what we're talking about, whether it's in athletics or I'm a political science major, so it comes up a lot in my political science classes. DEI is always part of the conversation. So people are at least aware of it now and aware that there are problems that need to be tackled and things that need to be considered beyond what was considered in years past. But what gives me a little bit of pause is that some people aren't willing to listen to the DEI side of conversations before they even hear an explanation. They just automatically put up a barrier as soon as they hear DEI. And so I think we have to remember to approach those conversations with the grace and respect to educate people without automatically putting up our own barriers towards them. So I think as long as we can remember to do that and have difficult conversations with respect, then DEI will continue to move forward on campus.
I completely agree. I feel like you all as student athlete leaders hit it right on the head. The fact that we do have more work to do, but continuing these dialogues and these conversations to create that awareness and bring these resources to student athletes in the larger community so that we can, in fact, build this inclusive community. I completely agree. So for our last question, we're gonna kick it back to Jasmine, and we're gonna bounce around with this one as well. So to what degree do you feel athletics is connected to the bigger campus?
I feel like as social media is like on the rise and stuff, athletics is becoming more of like the face of schools. So I feel like we basically represent the school, and I feel like we basically draw in more students. I feel like because it shows that we're strong and capable of like anything, and yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. Caleb, how do you feel?
Well, kind of going back to what Coach Dykes said, I feel like sports is like the ultimate equalizer. Like everyone from all walks of life enjoy sports to an extent. So I feel like as student athletes and being like the face of TCU and TCU athletics, like Jasmine said, like we have a big responsibility to use our platforms for good and spread awareness and those type of things. And then I feel like in terms of us relating to students and like reaching out to students, we have a big responsibility in that too. And that's something we can use our platforms for, and just spreading that type of awareness and reaching out to fans and using them as resources as well.
Awesome, that was great, Caleb. Thank you so much. And JC.
Going back to what Coach Morgan said earlier, when we play sports, everyone's there cheering for us no matter what. So we play a huge role in unifying TCU as a campus. And throughout the history of TCU, when I was looking into RRI, Black student athletes were the driving force behind, more minority staff on campus and, integrating campus more. And so that responsibility continues to fall to us today. And through sports, we can reach out to campus, use our platform, use social media. There's a lot that rides on us as athletes. So we have the opportunity to have a very loud voice on campus. And, it gives us the chance to push forward all the work that continues to happen through DEI and RRI.
Thank you so much, JC. And you guys are truly amazing and awesome. And now I want to turn it over to Fado and how you feel about athletics being connected.
I would have to second what the past three said about us being the face for TCU, because a lot of people do want to come to schools that have a big spirit and like school pride, and that we do have that responsibility to use our platforms in terms of just athletics itself and us being players and athletes. But as far as like a student side, I feel like there's a disconnect between regular students and athletes because, and I think COVID did a big, plays a big part in that because we had to be in a bubble these past 2 years and didn't get a chance to connect and do any activities. And now that we're not so much in a bubble anymore, there is opportunity for us. And I would like to see that Black athletes get more involved with BSA and or any organizations that people want to be a part of would be nicer to see, because we'll have that community between the athletes and student athletes and regular students.
Awesome. I completely agree. I think if we, student athletes definitely have a lot of pressures, schedule demands, everything. But if there was some way to, get more opportunities for student athlete involvement in these groups, such as BSC and everything like that, I think that would be a game changer as well. And then lastly, I'll turn it over to Andrew and Dominic to close us out with the last regards to the last question.
Yeah, so just like everybody's been saying, like sports are important, right? Like not just from a financial standpoint, but from like a publicity standpoint. And you know, a lot of schools and a lot of people now, I mean, they need publicity just to, you know, just so people know who you are. I feel like that's how it is, not just at this school, but at any school or honestly this country. Like, in my opinion, I mean, I may be totally wrong, but I feel like after the President of the United States, if you're talking about most popular person, the next one's probably an athlete. So I just feel like athletics has, you know, has a very big role on this campus, especially. Just like everybody else hit it on the head, just talking about being the face of things and being just like kind of like a driving force. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess kind of like Afedo was saying, student athletes here and interacting with the students, we make up about like, I think it's like 5%. So there's like 400 student athletes, 8,000 students, which is relatively high among colleges, because you think about like how there's only a certain amount of athletes, but we only have 8,000 students, right? Whereas like in Ohio State or Texas A&M has a ton of students. So there's not a lot of athletes compared to the student body. And I think that's important because like we're more exposed. I don't know if that's really the right word for it, but we're able to interact with more of the student population. Like I know some of my buddies that go to those big state schools don't get to interact with athletes, or when they do, it's like a phenomenon. Like it's not very normal, but like we're sitting in class with a lot of these guys. Like we don't have big lecture halls. We've got small intimate classes, and being able to interact with the student body population in that kind of way in a classroom setting where maybe you're working on a group project with them is pretty cool. And I think maybe that's where like a bit of initiative of change could come from, is that ability to relate to a student body population. And one other thing that I think is a big driving factor is social media, and how you have honestly like Barstool Sports kind of bringing like a lot of students to say like the basketball games or something like that. Like we had record turnouts and stuff like that, and kind of raising awareness and a little bit of publicity, like Andrew was saying, for the student athlete, which is a pretty cool deal. So stuff like that, if we could continue, could spark a little bit of change, I think.
Thank you so much, Dom. That was very insightful. It really was. And I just hope that after everyone is hearing you all's voices and platforms, that we can continue this, keep it going, and see some of these changes made in fruition. So a quick question. This is for any of you all, for the student athletes that we had from the audience. Anyone can, you know, step up and answer this however they like. So we'll take a few answers for this. Can you give examples of how you used your status as a student athlete and the platform of sports to spread this awareness to effect change on campus? Anyone can take that away.
I can start. I think one thing that I've been working on with athletics is a Dress for Success program that will award student athletes with suits once they've completed a checklist of like professional development items. And part of the initiative behind that idea was as an equalizer. I heard a lot of feedback from previous student athletes that part of why some people don't attend like professional development events is because they don't have the means or the resources to have a proper outfit. And so that's something that I want to change on campus, specifically in athletics, and build the resources for people to be able to, you know, set themselves up for a successful career after TCU.
Thank you for sharing.
I'll go next. For me and JC are both on Big 12 SAC. And one of the campaigns we did for Black History Month, we did like a month-long campaign, and we wanted to do one for Women's History Month as well, but and use kind of the same format. But I think that was like a step towards getting involvement just in athletics. But I met with Tamika from the Intercultural Center, and I had a meeting with her about how to bridge the gap between student athletes and regular students, because there has been a disconnect, but as Dominic said, like we do have a larger population of student athletes than most other schools. So it's encouraging to hear that. So basically, like we just wanted to get the ball rolling of how to have these campaigns and host events to get more athlete turnout and find a way to get those, to build more of a community on campus for the upcoming years.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. That was amazing. And thank you so much for that. So now, after we've answered one of the audience's questions, now I want to turn it over. We're going to do something quick and special. So if you want to call this overtime of the panel, so we went first half, second half. If you want to call this overtime, this is what we'll do. We have a series of rapid fire questions. And how I want to open this up is that we'll have one coach and we'll have one student athlete answer each rapid fire question real quickly. And that's why it's called rapid fire questions. So coaches, if you would turn on your audio and your video as well, we'll quickly go and we'll alternate on these rapid fire questions. And we'll go head coach first, and then we'll go student athlete next. So for our first rapid fire question, we have, if you were chancellor for a day, what would you change first? Which coach do we have taking this one?
I'll take it. I would try to have some kind of experience where athletes and students switch roles in a weird sort of way. In other words, just the student body goes through not necessarily a workout, but comes over, sees what the student athletes go through on a regular day. And then also, I think it's important for some of our athletes to see what some of our regular students go through on a certain day. I think a lot of our athletes are blessed in the fact that we're on, a lot of them are on scholarship and they put a lot of time in. And then I think some of our other students that aren't athletes, a lot of times, the assumption is, well, they're sleeping in, they're taking it easy, whatever the case may be. And then, I think it'd be important for them to go see, some of these guys are working. Some of these folks are, taking on jobs where they work late into the night or night shift or early morning things so that they can attend class here. Again, it kind of goes back to what I talked about earlier, just the idea of putting yourself in another person's shoes and seeing the same experience from a different perspective. And I think it was supposed to be rapid. Sorry, I wasn't very rapid.
All right. No, thank you, Coach Dykes. That was awesome. Would love to see that happen. Would love to see it. All right. What student athlete would like to step up to answer the question about the chancellor? What would you change?
Dom's got this one.
Okay. I like what Coach Dykes said. I think that's something we could do, especially with say our practices being open now. Like we could bring some students over, like maybe not actually go through a full ped practice, but at least see what it's like. And another thing I think I'd do, there was a survey sent out about this. I don't know if all the students in here saw it, but the core curriculum that we have in the beginning of the year, they're trying to switch that up, which I think is awesome. I think there could be a lot of different things that could be implemented in there. A practical life application kind of deal, where you go through different stuff like tax, all that kind of stuff, whatever it may be. So something like that would be pretty cool. Maybe you could even throw in a DEI kind of course, maybe just a conversation kind of deal, not a mandated thing, because we see what happens when you mandate that kind of stuff, just across the board with how people in this generation respond to that kind of stuff. But just more open conversations and getting to meet different people from different walks of life.
Thank you, Dom. Would love to see that happen as well. I think it would be a game changer for students and student athletes. Last rapid fire question quickly before we turn it over back to Marcellus Perkins, as he'll give the closing remarks for the panel. So we have, we'll start with a student athlete this time. So if TCU were a song, what song would it be?
For
Pretty
me,
Girl Rock.
What did he say?
Pretty Girl Rock by Carrie Hilson.
Explain it.
Oh, I can
Okay.
explain it. It's supposed to be rapid fire.
Oh, okay.
All right. All right. Which coach do we have? We have Pretty Girl Rock first. Who would like to answer from the coaches?
I'll try. We did a playlist as a team about a year ago, and I just kind of peeked into that for some inspiration. And I don't remember who proposed it, but it was a good one. And it's by Maze featuring Frankie Beverly. We Are One. Yeah. So, but Pretty Girl Rock, that's a pretty good one too. It's hard to beat.
Thank you, Coach Pebley. I'm going to say one more thanks to our head coaches and our student athletes. Just thank you so much for your time, your leadership on this panel. All the responses and input was just very insightful. And just thank you so much again and using your voice and your platforms. I'll now turn it over to Marcellus for closing remarks to close out the panel.
Absolutely. David, thank you so much. Everyone that is watching, wherever you are, whether it's Zoom, please give our wonderful moderator, David Swillam, a round of applause wherever you are. You did an amazing job. So thank you. We want to acknowledge you for your time, energy, and effort conducting this conversation. To our coaches and our wonderful student athletes, on behalf of RRI, we also want to thank you as well for participating in this conversation. We've been having these conversations with each of our colleges on campus, trying to figure out what does it mean to reconcile. And we would be remiss if we didn't choose to include athletics, because we know that TCU athletics is a big part of who TCU is. So our coaches and student athletes, one, I want to thank you for using your time. Also, I want to thank you for using your platform, because you didn't have to, but you chose to participate in this conversation. And for that, we thank you for modeling the behavior and being true leaders and true leading Horned Frogs. So thank you all for that. Briefly, I want to go through some slides really quick for upcoming events of RRI. Again, if you are on the podcast world, check us out, Reconcile This, on all streaming platforms. If you have any questions, our email, rri@tcu.edu. We do classroom visits, so do let us know. As well, save the date for Reconciliation Day, April 20th, 2022. It will be an amazing event. If you were there last year, we had a great conversation, great food, and most importantly, great fellowship. And we will be returning with that again this year. More information to come. Check out our website for more information. And that, ladies and gentlemen, will conclude today's virtual town hall. As we were watching, something came in my mind. I'm a basketball fan. I thought of Allen Iverson. He said, practice, practice, practice. We're talking about practice. This is what allows us to have these conversations. It's the practice. You may not be perfect. You may not know everything, but if you are willing to practice, 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 you'll find it in yourself that having these difficult conversations about race and reconciliation comes a little bit easier every time. So I would encourage you all to take some time to continue to read, reach out, network, connect with some of the panelists you've spoken to today, or other parts of campus communities that are doing the work that you're interested in, and continue to practice. And with that being said, RRI promises not to change everything about TCU. We are not a magic wand. However, we pledge to do the best we can with what we have. As always, go Horned Frogs.